Now for a look at the top headlines in today's French newspapers with Florence Villeneuve. Hello there, good morning. Now we're going to start off with a very interesting report from the Senate that's scheduled to come out today. It's about government efforts to help de-radicalize individuals who are seen as being brainwashed by Islamists, by jihadists.
That's right. These are attempts to unindoctrinate individuals who have been brainwashed by jihadists. The right-wing paper Le Figaro is really categorical. It says that the current de-radicalization policy, well, it's a complete failure, according to Le Figaro. Le Figaro says this is due to two things. First of all, the policies themselves, the programs themselves, which tend to be too soft. According to Le Figaro, they tend to focus on civic studies and reinserting people into French society. But the second reason, according to Le Figaro, is that beyond a certain stage of radicalization, well, there's just no turning back. Le Figaro says for some individuals, you just can't undo the spell of jihadism.
Gosh, it's a very interesting subject, and I have to say they might be criticising the government's approach, but it is hard to think of ways that you could go about this process. Does Le Figaro have any suggestions at all?
Well, keep in mind Le Figaro is the main right-wing paper here, so they tend to really want to focus on security. They have very harsh opinions, for instance, when it comes to incarceration, etc. They're very critical of the government's approach over the past 3 years. We have been collectively blind to the truth. According to Le Figaro, it's time to wake up because we've already lost some precious time. Sadly, it's very clear, according to the senatorial report, that despite all the best efforts in the world by battalions of psychologists, of social workers, the draw of jihad is just too strong. Did we really think that we could beat radical Islam with workshops on civic studies? That's what Le Figaro wants to know. It says that it's time to wake up from this kind of Care Bear reality that we've been in. This utopia that we've been wanting to live in is a failure. We have to face the truth. But what's interesting is they don't actually offer concrete solutions themselves, but they do say that what we're seeing now, it just isn't working.
Well, I think if any solutions are found, I think they'll probably take quite a long time to take effect anyway, won't they? In the meantime, the government's also struggling to deal with a linked issue. This is about French citizens who've left France to go to the Middle East, Syria and Iraq mainly, fight jihad, and now they're starting to come back, or they have been for some time, really.
Estimates say that about 680 French citizens are currently in Iraq and Syria. Now, what's interesting is this article in Le Monde focuses on the fact that the government doesn't want to take those who have been captured back. It doesn't want them to come back to France. And this article in Le Monde says the authorities are actually trying to avoid having to bring them back to France, though the authorities haven't really clearly admitted this yet, because it's a really tricky situation. Le Monde points out that some of these individuals that are wanting to come back to France are truly upset. They're traumatized by what they've seen while fighting in Iraq, in Syria. And so they're actually calling for help from the French government. But it's tricky because some of these some of the individuals have evil intent, I guess you could say. They have held on to their radical beliefs and actually want to continue jihad in Europe. So the government is in a tricky situation, and in the meantime, it just doesn't want any of these individuals back.
Tricky situations, but the least you can say about that, I think. Staying with Le Monde, they've also got a portrait of a family that deserted from the Islamic State group. They're now being held prisoner by the Free Syrian Army.
Well, it's an example of families that are perhaps caught in this kind of legal limbo that we're seeing. It's a very interesting portrait here. This is Sarah, Amin, and their daughter. So they tried to flee the Islamic State group in last October, after 2 years spent in the ranks of the Islamic State group. They were turned back at the Turkish border and captured by the Free Syrian Army. They're being held by the Free Syrian Army that actually let them tell this story. Now, Sarah, so the woman, says that the conditions are terrible and she would actually rather be locked up in France. Le Monde also talks about what the French government is saying. The foreign ministry says it's not competent in this situation because France closed its embassy in Syria in 2012. So currently, the family is stuck in this legal limbo.
All right, let's move on to something completely different now. The French presidential election bearing down on us in just about 2 months' time, actually, end of April, the first round vote. And as the candidates reveal different parts of their programmes and the details of them, it's Marine Le Pen's economic programme that's being picked apart somewhat by an independent think tank.
This is the Institut Montaigne. It's an independent think tank that tends to promote free market capitalism. You can see it's saying that her economic program would be disastrous. Essentially, she wants France to leave the Eurozone. Returning to the franc would have considerable costs. According to their calculations, GDP would drop by 180 billion euros. 500,000 jobs would be lost. It's not only this think tank that's worried about the situation, though. Les Echos, too, if we take a look at their editorial, they're saying that essentially Marine Le Pen's program would put France in a bell jar. France would lose part of its sovereignty. It would be amputated. It would essentially lose its rank, its voice, and part of its soul. So Les Echos says we really need to sound the alarm because we only have 80 days left. But take a look at this article in the Figaro. 80 days left to go. Marine Le Pen seems to be on a roll. It seems like she's untouchable. Nothing can touch her, not even this latest scandal involving allegations of a fictitious job at the European Parliament. Fictitious jobs, I should say. There was a police raid on her headquarters, but she's still very high in opinion polls. She seems untouchable.
For what opinion polls are worth.
Exactly.
Now, I just want to quickly have a word about one last story about another contender, a centrist politician who might be stepping into the presidential race later on. Very aptly illustrated by a Monty Python-inspired cartoon. Please do show it to us.
Take a look at the front page of L'Opinion. So this is François Bayrou. He's from the Modem party. He has actually run for president 3 times. Today, he's going to say whether he's going to run again or whether he's going to back Emmanuel Macron, also running in the center. So look at this cartoon. You can see the Monty Python Holy Grail reference here, depicting Emmanuel Macron, François Bayrou as the knights who say ni. Now, ni in French is neither left nor on the right. And the other candidates just don't know what they're all about.
Okay, I'm a big fan of Monty Python, so I'm all for that cartoon. Thanks so much, Florence Villeneuve.